We're on to Lesbians in horror. Was this one that was prompted by someone besides me?
It's filmed in the same building where they filmed Rocky Horror. It's the same big castle.
Nice.
That's awesome. It is such a great movie, and it's PG because nothing happens.
Right.
Although, your kids will scare the shit out of your kids.
Welcome back to Fright Club Live. Taping this, as we always do, second Wednesday of every month from the beautiful Gateway Film Center in Columbus, Ohio. Such a great spot for horror, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here coming up. But the latest edition, we're going to talk about lesbians in horror.
We are going to, and
you just want that's like a shock headline.
It is. It is. It's a hot take.
It is a hot take.
Yeah.
And this is the first time, maybe that I can remember, that the movie we're showing tonight is number one on the list.
No, it's not the first time. It's just
one of the few times.
It's been a while, but
it's been a while.
Yeah.
But so that's a bit of a spoiler alert. But we got a few more to talk about. And before we get to that, we want to thank Andy from Black Cat Shadow Podcast for our last podcast, the studio edition of Fright Club, which was that turned out to be a really good conversation.
It did. It's always fun when the guest brings 5 completely different movies. We talked about the best twist endings in horror, so we actually talked about 10 movies.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. I have to point this. Actually, somebody pointed this out to me. I said that Amy Steele was the survivor from Halloween 2. We all know who survived Halloween 2. She's the survivor from Friday the 13th Part 2. So that was an accident, and I apologize for that. And then
did the Twitter trolls just attack you?
I got a little bit
Internet
of shit for that. I got a little bit of shit for that, which is fine. I'm supposed to know what words come out of my mouth. And then Monty was confused when I said that Sleepaway Camp was not a great movie. Silas also wondered. Their guess was that what I meant was it's not a great movie. It's the greatest movie. Confirmed.
No,
fellas.
that is
That's
not
what I
you meant
to
at
say.
all. What we meant was that twist ending is unforgettable.
It is. Also, Dzak has a great T-shirt. I just want to point that out as well.
Of Sleepaway Camp?
Yeah.
Is it
very
the face?
You should go look it up, and Christmas is coming.
Duly noted. All right, so that was a lot of fun. So we're on to lesbians in horror. Was this one that was prompted by someone besides me?
Oh, the research that George had to do. No. Sometimes when I put together the list of the movies that that I want to see that I think will be good to show, then right away I have to decide what our topics will be so that I don't accidentally use it up. While I wait for that movie to come up, and so. When we decided on this film as our classic for this year, there were a couple that we could have done, female vampires, which we've already done. There were some, and I just thought, well, we haven't really spent time talking about how lesbians are represented in horror, and that would be an interesting topic. So that was, it was just, kind of came with the territory of this movie.
Okay, so we've got a good list of 5, but there's a few that you wanted to mention that were kind of bubbling under and from one reason or another didn't get on our final list.
Yeah, so what I looked for when I put together the final list was the lesbian or lesbians had to be the main characters. They couldn't be just side characters. Your gay best friend. That's not what I was looking for. And I was looking for, something that was good, right? That wasn't just like, I'm going to have this hot girl bite this other hot girl a bunch of times. And then that's going to basically be the plot of the movie. I know, Bridget's leaving now. She's like, God damn it. One of the things I think that's great about horror right now is that there are a ton of films where the leads happen to be lesbians that has nothing to do with anything else. It's just this is how the character sort of dice landed. And I appreciate that. And there are a couple. There's one called What Keeps You Alive. It came very close to making this list. And it's about a married couple, and they go away for their first anniversary. And as it turns out, it's also just long enough where the life insurance policy kicks in. And it's an interesting movie because it doesn't matter. Like there's the fact that the couple, one of them villainous, one of them not, is lesbians doesn't make any difference whatsoever. And I really appreciated that about this movie. And then there are a handful of others that could possibly have made the list, but then didn't, that I love. I love the movie May. I love the movie May. But it's not really about being a lesbian as much as it is about trying to find someone to love. But it happens that Anna Faris, who plays a lesbian character in the movie, is just one of her best performance ever, and it's one of the most fun performances that I've seen in a horror movie. So I almost put that on there just out of favoritism. Jennifer's Body is also another one that I think is really underrated. Eyes of My Mother has a little bit of that going on, but not enough to make the list, even though obviously we love that film.
Yeah.
But then there are a handful that I just want to warn you, if you're looking for, are not going to be on this list. Vampiro's Lesbos is not going to be on this list. It's just not. And then Vampires, which has like these female vampires named, I think, Carol and Martha. Like, they're lunch lady names. You're like, is that, all right, I guess that's sexy. But here's the reason that it didn't make the list, but I almost put a photo up. It's filmed in the same building where they filmed Rocky Horror. It's the same big castle.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Over at the Frankenstein place?
Over at the Frankenstein place, that's right.
Awesome.
Alucarda is another one that didn't make this list, but it might make the Nuns list one of these days. And then High Tension. So I don't want to give away the end of a movie that's 15 years old or anything, but anytime you watch a movie and you're going, oh my God, of course she's the villain, she's gay, it's a bad movie. Anyway, so that was my rant.
Okay.
And now we can go on with the list.
Yeah, let's get calm. Calm down. No, that's good. So, no, those are ones that a lot of them, that did merit a mention, but for one reason or another, didn't make the top 5. And so let's get to it, because we got a movie to watch here in a little bit. So we got to get through these. And number 5 is from 1983. I think it's one we've talked about before. A love triangle developing between a beautiful yet dangerous vampire, her cellist companion, and a gerontologist. The Hunger.
What have you done to me?
Forever and ever.
And life signs terminate right here.
The timeless beauty of Catherine Deneuve. The cruel elegance of David Bowie. The open sensuality of Susan Sarandon. Combined to create a modern classic of perverse fear. The Hunger.
So just another tip of the cap to Susan Sarandon for going on to have a long and illustrious career after that hairdo, because that will really... That would have killed a lot of lesser careers, would it not? It's bad. I know it was 1983. We all had some bad hair, but come on.
She looks like the cover of Duran Duran's Rio album, and that's just nostalgic fun for me. And this is a movie. This bobbed in and out of the top 5. I wasn't 100% certain I was going to put it on here. But Bowie is really the push over the cliff, regardless of the fact that he has nothing to do with the lesbian relationship in this movie.
And he's really not in it very much.
He's not.
He's very cool when he's in it.
Yeah.
What do they call him? Cruel
elegance.
Cruel elegance.
That's right.
That's what
Cruel
he's got.
Elegance.
Yeah.
And there's that great Bauhaus song as well. So.
But the one, going back to the theme of this podcast, it was interesting because originally the script called for Susan Sarandon's character to be drunk when they had their encounter, and she was the one who thought it should be changed because she wanted it to be clear, to have no uncertain terms that her character was choosing to do that and not have under the influence of alcohol, which I think is a pretty important change in the movie, and to get in there, I think that was actually something that was well done.
Yeah, and it's funny, her quote in a press release about that, or in press coverage about that, was like, "You do not have to be drunk to want to have sex with Catherine Deneuve," says Susan Sarandon.
And you probably noticed in the trailer there, the very first movie for Willem Dafoe.
That's right.
Said that small part, weird dude at the phone booth.
That's right.
I think was his actual character name. And I think we've mentioned this before as well, that back about 10 years ago, Warner Brothers announced plans for a remake, and it just never came to fruition. But I think it's kind of been in the pipeline, or at least in some sort of development hell for a while. Yeah,
well, it's interesting. The movie didn't make any money when it came out in 1983,
right,
which is kind of a shock if you think about it. Just on Bowie alone, you think that it would have made some money, and it didn't. And so I guess it's not a surprise that it took this long for somebody to decide they might make a sequel, and I hope they don't. I feel like there's the way that it ends is mysterious and weird, and I think a good way. I think that it leaves the door open for a sequel, but I hope that they don't do one.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I thought was interesting about this movie is the relationship between Susan Sarandon and Miriam Blaylock, she's the one really who's sort of, elegantly cruel and really like phenomenally so. I don't think Bowie's character is more desperate. And he does some terrible things. He kills that little girl. But it's all just out of desperation that all of a sudden he doesn't realize. And a lot of what I think it is, it's not just that he's dying suddenly, he didn't think he was going to, is that he's no longer sort of the object of affection for this person that he's devoted lifetimes to. And I think that it makes for a really lonesome core to this movie that I think elevates it above just sort of the exploitation of seeing two really major movie star women make out with each other.
Yeah, exactly. So that's number 5 on our list of lesbian horror from 1983, The Hunger. And I just realized, since we have a few new people here tonight, we were rude. We did not introduce ourselves at the beginning. So she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we're from madwolf.com. And we are here the second Wednesday of every month at the Gateway Film Center. And by the way, earlier in Happy Hours, since our friend Natalia is here, we got an early look at the May list for Horror 101. And let me just tell you, it's stellar.
It is stellar.
Stellar.
And also, I'm going to go ahead and spill the beans. We're going to have a meetup for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for Horror 101 next month. So come back for that.
So we will have all the details.
One of my absolute favorite movies of all time.
Very soon. You can always watch our Facebook page at Mad Wolf Columbus. And, of course, gatewayfilmcenter.org. We'll have the complete lineup here released very soon. All right, let's get back to the countdown. Number 4. This one was from just last year. Might have slipped through the cracks for a lot of people. It's a confused girl trying to deny her feelings for a female friend who's in love with her. It's called Thelma.
Hola, soy Anya. Thelma. ¿Estudias química? No, biología.
This is one of those movies that you think you know where you're going, and then it just really changes direction in a very, very spooky way. It has one of the best opening sequences, like just brilliant, amazing, jarring, and gorgeous to watch opening sequence about a little girl and her dad and a hunting rifle in the snow. It's amazing. And where it goes from there is kind of a coming-of-age film that reminded me in terms of Raw, Carrie, and Frailty, even a little bit.
Yeah, there's some religious fanaticism involved in the movie for sure.
And you start to think that the religious fanaticism plays a certain role, and then you come to realize later that the role is a little different than what you expected at the beginning. It's very surprising and really hypnotic to watch. But also, I mean, I think that it owes a great deal to Ely Harbo, who is the lead. I'm sorry, I always want to say Ellie, and I'm like, that's not right. Because she's in just about every single scene in the film, and she has such a subdued way about her that it's fascinating to me that she can carry the film as well as she does.
This is writer-director Joachim Trier, and it's a Norwegian film. And it's, for some people, you might think this is one of those movies where nothing much happens, because it has a very deliberate pace, but things do happen,
and a lot of what happens off screen.
Yeah,
which I think sometimes can be to a certain degree. If it's not the only thing that you get in a movie, it can be even more, I think, haunting.
And there's part of this feeling of just sort of creeping dread, even though at times these powers that the girl has can be a gift and a curse, both, which I think makes it a fascinating character study and definitely worth checking out if you missed it from last year. Thelma, number 4 on our list of lesbian horror. And that takes us up to number 3, a classic from 1963. A scientist doing research on the paranormal invites 2 women to a haunted mansion. One of the participants soon starts losing her mind. It's The Haunting.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
Oh, this house. You have to watch it every minute.
What does it take to convince you that the dead do not always rest in peace? That some houses, like Hill House, are born bad?
Did this surprise anybody that this would make the list? They're not exactly out with it in this movie, but I think that...
Well, it was 1963.
It was, and it's based on the absolutely magnificent, glorious novel by Shirley Jackson that came out in 1954. But I think that there is a strong evidence to support the idea that Theo is a lesbian, and then
for sure.
Yeah, well, especially now there's the TV series that was made for a Netflix series in which the Theo character is just out and proud. She's just this badass lesbian. So obviously they recognized something.
Well, and there's the "I hate you" written in lipstick on the mirror after obviously some breakup. But yeah, because it was 1963, the censors had a rule that Theo was never to be shown touching Eleanor, but they broke that.
Yes, they
several
did.
times.
Yep.
And so the theme, I think, makes it through. Maybe not at the time, but I think this is a real testament to Robert Wise. I think because not only did he direct it, I'm pretty sure he edited it as well, and it's really well edited and shot. It's black and white, as you could tell from the trailer, and the camera work is disorienting. And the way they play with the black and white light and shadow just really reinforces the whole haunted house element of it. And it's just, I think, just really well put together.
It's incredibly spooky, and it's a psychological terror. And it is actually, this is one where nothing happens on screen. There's a lot of noises, but nothing actually happens because, in fact, you don't know if anything does happen. It could all be in Eleanor's mind. I mean, it is such a great movie, and it's PG because nothing happens.
Right.
Although, your kids will scare the shit out of your kids. But I do, if you go back to the Theodora character, when they first start talking to each other and she asks, she refers to a we, but she says later she's not married, and then later when they're alone in the room, Eleanor says that she's unnatural. And there are so many hints that are dropped throughout this movie, but which alone wouldn't make it strong enough to put it on this list. It's that the character is such a strong, positive character, and that the two women have such a very close friendship that doesn't rely on anything unseemly. There's no, lurid element to it. They're just bonding because of this situation that they're in. I just think it's one of those very rare, especially for 1963, positive images.
Yeah.
Of lesbianism.
And I'm sure for some people they got the message, but I bet a lot of audiences back then didn't.
Sure.
Didn't get the message at all. Like when I was a kid, I didn't realize the Village People were gay.
Wow.
I didn't get that.
I didn't know Boy George was. So I'm dumber still.
So you know what? Sometimes it just goes right over the audience's head.
It just does.
Regardless, it's a really, like we said, really well-constructed movie, and just one of the top-notch, just haunted house movies.
Absolutely.
Although, as you say, it is so interesting that nothing really happens on screen,
right,
but that it can still be so creepy is a real testament to the effectiveness of The Haunting from 1963. That is number 3. So moving up to number 2, well, if you wanted something to happen, something's going to happen here.
There isn't a lot of guesswork about the sexual orientation of these
two.
No
guesswork here. From 2016, a woman is hired as a handmaiden to a Japanese heiress, but secretly she is involved in a plot to defraud her. The Handmaiden.
내가 여태 소매치기였으면 한 번은 손을 넣어서 만져봤을 텐데.
Well, anybody that's seen this movie would know that there's no question it qualifies from the lesbian angle.
Indeed.
But, I think there's some people that wouldn't consider this a horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. It's really not until you sort of get into the uncle's basement that anything super creepy happens.
Right.
Like monstrous and all. But it's got such a weird vibe all the way through it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's a con. The movie is about a con. And so, your
brilliant
brain,
con.
Yeah. And your brain spends a lot of time trying to tease out allegiances and crisscrossing and backstabbing, and this other part of your brain is going, wait, look how weird this uncle is. What's going on in this house? And it's the most fascinating and gorgeous.
Oh, the cinematography in this movie is just insane.
It really is.
It looks fantastic. Every frame, the way the shots are constructed and the colors and everything about it, like it does. It looks gorgeous. And the heist the con, I should say, is very involving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As is the sex. It's very descriptive. It's very specific.
Yeah, and this is director
Chan-wook
Park.
See everything he's ever done.
He's great.
Everything.
And actually, during the script writing stage, he and his female co-writer, they sought the advice of a very good friend who was a lesbian for advice on trying to get the sensibilities of it right. I don't know if they had like a sex choreographer or whatever.
I think they do, yeah. Films do.
Yeah, it was, it certainly got the point across.
It did. It was very gymnastic. Yeah, it was. And it was one of those, it's one of those movies we were talking about it in the happy hour, where you go into it not really knowing what you're getting into, and suddenly you realize, okay, well, we're all friends now.
Exactly right. But, and they were also he was very sensitive to the actresses when filming those scenes. They had a lot of rules on set. There were no men on set when they filmed it. A lot of the shots were done with remote controlled camera, and they really tried to make it, as easy on the actresses as they could. But they're great. I think the cast is great.
Oh my God, the cast is so great.
And even that part of it, that relationship is very central to the story. You don't really, as graphic as it is, it doesn't really come off as gratuitous.
I agree with you. And, and it's funny because I think that had it been a male-female relationship that started off as being so very sexual and then wound up being the relationship that ends, the balance of the movie, I don't think we would even be talking about that.
Right.
We would just be saying, well, of course, they're the leads. They're the romantic leads. They're going to wind up together. So I think that it's a testament to this filmmaker that realizes there's no reason for it to be different just because they are both women.
That's right. And like you said, just really see everything he does because he's always produces movies that are so involving, and this one is certainly no exception. So that's number 2 on our list of lesbian horror, The Handmaiden. And before we get to number 1, which is the one we're going to see tonight, keep in mind, if you don't have a Fright Club button, we got plenty down here. Got Fright Club T-shirts as well. And I was talking with a couple of people that were asking about, if you haven't noticed, our wonderful spring line of Fright Club fashions. We do have a way where you could order anything you wanted with the Fright Club logo on it. We'll post about that. So once we've got the logo set up, so there's no charge for any of that stuff once the logo is set up. So anyway, we will post about that at madwolf.com and Mad Wolf Columbus on Facebook. But let's get to number 1, and it's the classic. You try to do one classic every year, right? And that is going to be the one for tonight. It's from 1971, a newlywed couple passing through a vacation resort when their paths cross with a mysterious, strikingly beautiful countess and her aide.
Her aide.
Daughters of Darkness.
Who do you think I am? A kind of ghoul? A vampire? Oh, no, my dear. So many nights, tumbling and tumbling away into the abyss of time. Faster, my love. Faster.
If you think these ladies are something, wait until you meet Mother. She's something else.
Okay, we found some quiet time, some alone time, as we always do. We don't want to spoil anything for a lot of people, I think, who haven't seen this movie tonight.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think this is one that could get some varied reactions.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a classic, and it certainly has that look about it. I think there are some things that maybe don't translate as well as other things. There are some hokey moments from looking at it through today's lens.
Yeah, I think so. And it certainly isn't action-packed, but it's very weird.
Yeah.
And there are so many things that you're like, so, well, that just happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's the story, the newlyweds, they have their honeymoon pretty much invaded by this older lesbian vampire.
And her young lover.
Yes, her aide. So, you have no idea how many hundreds of years she's been haunting and she's been doing things like this, but she's certainly experienced, especially next to the newlyweds, which is kind of one of the undercurrents of the movie. She is wisdom and experience, and they are youth and foolish naivete, and she just preys on them. She starts in so sweet and so demure, and then she's got a plan the whole time.
And it's funny because one of the things she says when she's kind of regaling them with her, worldly stories is some archbishop one time. What did he say to me? Oh, he said, Elizabeth, you're such an innocent. And I am. And you're like, oh, I don't think you are.
No, not at all. This is director and co-writer Harry Kumel, and he's got a real way with atmospherics here in this one. It's got an incredibly gothic tone to it. it's all feathers and boas and, arching ceilings and corridors and things like that when they're in this hotel, that they seem to be the only tenants, the only guests of the hotel. There's one concierge, they say. I still don't know who is cooking these lavish dinners and who the bartender is. The concierge does it all, I guess. But there's some very striking shots, I think, not only in the architecture, but also it only happens maybe 2 or 3 times, but you get a wide shot with the Countess's cape.
Yeah.
And she pulls it up very bat-like, very Dracula-like, and either envelops it around somebody or just leaves it up there like wings. I really enjoyed those shots.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of, especially of her, some great shots that make the most of her really decadent wardrobe. I mean, her clothes are so vampy and glorious, and they're a nice counterpoint to Valerie, who's always in complete white. She's always totally in white, and she's got this real long blonde hair, and it just is such a great
Stefan also always, he's got a fetching white pants sweater ensemble at one point.
He does. But, one of the things that I appreciate about this movie is that Stefan, there's something so sinister and wrong about him, but they don't explore it.
Yep.
It's just there. And it has to do with his phone call home to Mother. And I find that to me is also, it's just the masculine counterpoint to this Valerie Countess relationship that is developing. And I think that's really fascinating. I mean, I think there are so many things about this movie that they're just sort of handed to you without explanation that I just find so intriguing. But the reason I love this movie, though it does look amazing, and there are lots of weird things happening, is Delphine Seyrig's performance is just glorious. It's such... please be nice to me. You have to be nice to me. It's like this weary elegance that she has to this whole thing. I just absolutely love every minute she's on screen.
Yeah, and you can see similarities in The Hunger that we've already talked about in Catherine Deneuve's performance, and the character, and the sort of triangle replacing one with another.
Absolutely.
You see a lot of that.
I always, first of all, they make a good bookend to this list of movies, I think. But also, I've always thought that Catherine Deneuve, I think, tried to, pull a little bit of this Bathory performance into her. She doesn't play Countess Bathory, but anytime you play sort of the female Dracula, that's, you're going to draw comparisons. And I think that I think there are a lot of callbacks to this film in The Hunger.
Yeah, in fact, there's at least one scene where all you see is the Countess's, like, the bottom half of her face. In that shot, she really resembles Catherine Deneuve. Yeah. It's not until her entire face comes out into the light, well, so much as that she's allowed to be in the light, that you see it's totally someone different. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities, I think, in the performance and in the movie. And you'll see some bits of other things that might remind you of other movies, even things like The Turn of the Screw or things like that, in the way it's shot. But it's certainly interesting watching it today. I'll be interested to talk with people after the movie who haven't seen it, how some of these things translate, because, well, there's a scene with a big, it's not a vase, but a glass bowl, and how that's used as kind of a weapon. I don't know if that is that realistic now, but okay. So we'll see how that translates. But it's a good choice for, if we're going to pick one, that we like to do, that you like to do for a classic. Yeah. That's a good one. So it should be very interesting to not only watch on the big screen, but get the reactions. So we're going to watch it here in just a little bit. So let's get back in there and get ready. All right, so how many people have already seen this? Oh, just 2. All right. Oh, 3. Okay, great. All right. Well, we're not going to say anything about it. We don't want to spoil anything for anybody. Nope. But we look forward to, we want to tip you off to what we've got coming for the May edition of Fright Club.
Yep, on Wednesday, May 8th. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. We're going to show the movie The Lure, which is a Polish vampire mermaid musical. You just need to see it. You just need to see it. And our podcast is going to be on Sea Beasts.
All right.
That's the plan.
So that's the next Fright Club Live, but we're going to have a Fright Club in the studio in a couple of weeks with a special guest.
Daniel Baldwin from Bloody Disgusting is going to join us, and we're going to talk about dirty hippies.
Dirty hippie horror. You know what? I think we're going to be throwing that out, maybe on Twitter. To get some ideas, some people's favorites, dirty hippie horror. So look
absolutely.
For that. Look for that coming soon. That should be fun.
And remember, you can always reach out to us on Twitter. We're at Fright Club Pod. #Fright Club.
All right, so this podcast will get all edited and done, probably be live on Monday. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts or always at madwolf.com, and we'll post it on all our social media favorites. So appreciate you coming out. We're getting ready to watch Daughters of Darkness. Is that about it?
I think it is.
That's about it. Till next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.